Okay, well, we'll continue our series that we've been doing. The purpose of these series are to encourage writers to write and understand some of the mechanics, some things that might encourage you to think about how to go about it and have a try, particularly if you've never tried before. The ebook world is so wonderful. You can do it all on the computer at home. Everything can be done without any help, and it's no cost. And you don't know what you're capable of, as I said in the last video, or was it the one before that, until you try. I didn't try until I was 55, and it's been quite a journey. It's been quite a journey. So, see if I can help you with your writing. I want to talk about how to write from personal experience and how to add from your personal experience what I call second-hand experience and explain the difference. And I'm going to do it by taking different things that I've written about in different books that are on my bookshelf, so that it becomes not just theoretical, but it becomes from my reality. So the first book is Gold Fever, the first manuscript I ever wrote. It was unreadable at the point of finishing it because at that stage I had not discovered readback programs where I could hear the mistakes, and we've cleaned that document up, but it hasn't been co-written yet. Gold Fever had a section in it about black cats. Now, where did I learn about black cats? Black cats were Catalinas, which were a rescue amphibious aircraft in the Second World War, an American design. And they painted them all black up on the East Australian coast in Townsville. And they used this as there was no bombers in this theatre of the war. They were all up in Europe. And so they turned this amphibious rescue craft into a bomber capable of carrying one bomb, but they could only do night ops with no lights, completely painted out black. And it was quite they did quite some damage up through the top of New Guinea and beyond. And I used my own experience, which is my personal experience, drawing from my own well in the area of being a pilot and understanding everything about aeroplanes and being an avid reader of things about aeroplanes, including the book about the black cats. And then we wove into all about the story about extending the range of the aircraft so that it could do this one-off bombing raid into territory that the Japanese at that time felt was secure. There was no aircraft had range to get there, and he did a bombing raid on a submarine that was left high and dry when the floor of the harbour came up when Kamigan Island blew up in 1940, I think it was 1943. And so parts of it are historically correct, parts of it are fictional. The bomber raid is fictional, but all the information about the black cats is true. And it's a combination of using personal experience and second-hand experience from reading others. And then in The Mystery of the Strongbox, we did a section about Corsairs, which were a late model fighter aircraft that used to fly off aircraft carriers. They had the fold-up wings. They were a pretty high-performance fighter aircraft, the Corsair. And it's about a pilot bailing out over the jungles of Borneo. How do we learn about that? We read a story about 17 Corsairs that went out to strafe up the harbour and suppress the enemy's chances of rescuing a downed pilot that was in the harbour. And out of the 17 that went out, only 6 got back because of bad weather. And it's talking about flying visual off the wingman, going to instruments and being completely lost with no fuel. What would you do? We combined into this story this particular pilot ending up in a longhouse amongst the Iban way up in the Borneo mountains. We talk about the wild man from Borneo. Well, that's where they are. And how do I know about that? first-hand experience, sailed my yacht all the way up the Kuching River, went up to Kapit, stayed in the Longhouse. So you're taking some from other sources, which is a second-hand experience, and you're melding it with a first-hand experience, and that's what makes the writing live. Now, I've got a story that I haven't even written yet, which would be entitled The Last Explorer. In all my 24 years of in and out of the Philippines and living in the Philippines 6 years, I met a guy that used to go from place to place amongst the Manobles. Excuse me. Now, the Manobles use blowpipes and poison arrows, and most Filipinos, the combination of Malays and Chinese that make up the Filipino race, and mixing with the Spanish, wouldn't want to go near the Manoble tribes up in the virgin forest because it was too dangerous. Yet this particular guy I met, I can't mention his name because he was getting into strife with the Filipino authorities, took a 2-metre handheld radio, went in a certain distance, was very good with languages, gifted at languages, and he'd go a bit more, and then he'd bring his brother up to camp, they'd make relationships, and they'd go a bit more. And over 7 years he learned 7 Manoble languages and ranged through hundreds of kilometres of territory that had never been walked by anybody. And he invited me up, and I didn't know all the story of course at that stage, and he invited me up to just inside the virgin bush line to meet some of his friends in a Manoble tribe. And I was 47 at the time, and we had to go mountain climbing. And when we got down to the bottom, he shook my hand and he said, well, I had the cold, excuse me, catchy throat. He said, would you like to go up there? So we got on trail bikes and climbed 45-degree mountains and eventually got up there. And when we got back, he shook my hand and said, well, you're the first white man ever to go to, and I can't mention the name of the place because I don't want to get him into strife, and I don't want to get myself into strife. In fact, had I known what I know now, I would never have gone. And I said, surely a doctor or a nurse or a surveyor or somebody. He said, no, they won't go up there. They're afraid of the Manoble will take them out. And the Manoble have funny concepts of what's right and wrong. If something goes through the corn patch and they think it's a stranger, they sit on the path and take out the next stranger that comes through, because he must have been the one that did it. So it is a very dangerous place to go. But I could put a digital tape recorder in front of that guy and pick his brains as second-hand experience, and then use stuff from that original source to write. So reading is a research tool, and talking to people that you meet who are interesting are a research tool, second-hand experience tool. And how did I discover, in the book Triggered, I talk about tugboats that have an azipod on the bottom of the modern tugs. There's a huge propeller system inside a shrouded, it's like an outside covering around the propeller to stop the spread of prop wash. And these azipods can turn through 360 degrees, which means there's tremendous manoeuvrability of the tugboat and huge power onto that huge big prop. And I used that from watching a documentary. But I also understand about underwater welding and underwater cutting rods because I've been involved in engineering in my younger days. So we built into the story that they have to all in survival mode, and they get this big tug which has got huge fuel reserves on it, but it's only got the ability to go distance with the normal propeller driven auxiliary motor. So they go over the side and they use cutting rods to cut away the azipod so that they can travel right down to warmer latitudes, because the world is going into the next ice age in that book from all the things that triggered it. Hence the name Triggered. Look at my notes here, that's why I look down. Keep on track, keep content rich for you guys. If you don't know about something, you can't write it. And my friend Dr. Cesar Quino in Simlin University once said, he says, you write about all sorts of stuff I could never write about, Tony. And So I say my name Tony. I always say myself as Ronald Sharp, which is my name, but everybody knows me socially. He says, Tony, I can't write what you write. And I said, why is that? He says, I don't know what you know. So you can't write about what you don't know. So fill up the well from your personal experiences, fill up the well from second-hand experiences, from any source you can get it, and then when you know about it, you can potentially use thinking time. I said the hardest work you ever do is thinking from the heart, and I don't believe writing cerebrally will make it. You need to draw from your very being a mixture of all this, and then use imagination, use inspiration, use giftedness, if you are a storyteller, to tell your story. So I want to finish this particular video talking about a book that I aimed at 12 to 14 year olds, probably primarily boys because it's about boys, but everybody can even love a children's story, and it's written so that others could enjoy it also. I write books from seeing them in my mind's eye, and probably they're movie concepts. In fact, my book, Beyond the Point of No Return, many people have read it in its manuscript form and said, oh, that's a movie. And I think that's because of the way I go about it. But The Great Race is a very, very good example of how I've used what I know from my sailing. I've done 52,000 miles sailing on a 26-ton motor sailor, and read a lot, a huge amount about sailing, and particularly very interested in the old sailing days. Know all about how the sailors used to sail those boats and what was involved in sailing the big square riggers. So we wrote this book about two Jimmies, both got the same name, both got the same age, one born in New Zealand, in Australia, Ballarat, one born in New Zealand in Wellington, and both boys end up obviously on a vessel of exactly the same configuration, and there's a race. But it's talking about the characteristics of one boy by nature being a giver, the other boy by nature being a taker, and the conflict within their ethics and how they conduct themselves within the race. And somebody have said that the end of that story is a bit harsh for 12-year-olds. Well, who said life was fair? And it's designed to make young people think about values in life in the process of being entertained. So I got this idea when I was reading a book about the BOC Round the World race, single-handed race, where a sailor realised from information that he'd gained that the average speed of winds between the bottom of Chile and Portsmouth in England at that time of the year was 12.5 knots. So what he did is he went out to start the race at the bottom of Chile, at that part of the leg, and after the race was started he pulled down his old mainsail. I think he ditched it overboard from memory, and then pulled up a new mainsail that he had hidden down under below decks. And as soon as his competitor saw the size of this huge mainsail, he knew he'd lost the race. Now it was within the rules. He didn't cheat, he just used knowledge. And we wove this idea into the story for that section of the race, for one of the boys to be beating the other boy by using two big sails, which is called sailing wing and wing, with and they didn't actually have these on sailing ships, so this is all fictional. But it's a combination of, you get an idea from reading, or so there was a documentary about the BOC Around the World Challenge, and a piece of information about something in a modern race, and taking it then through and putting it into an old square rigger sailing ship race as being one way of making one ship move faster than the other. So these are examples of how I do it. Now, one of the reasons I make these videos is to encourage others to write. There's a huge market in every genre, and in the ebook world anybody can do it. And it wasn't always like that, because you had to use the publishers and the typesetters, and there was money involved, and it wasn't, this capacity to write and be a creative writer hasn't been possible for all those that could have in times past, but I'm encouraging you to have a go. You may find that you have to get many manuscripts in before you get one that you think is good enough to be publishable, but like with everything, practice makes perfect, so I'm encouraging you to have a go. I'm also making no excuses for saying my co-writer Jenny Sweeney has done a fantastic job at getting 79,000 words in shape over several rewrites on the book Dream Bouncing,